Hola a todos y bienvenidos a mi canal. Soy Emily y he superado mi examen de nivel C1 en español hace 8 meses y quiero también darles en este vídeo consejos, también mi plan exacto que había usado antes de descubrir que había superado el examen y también los recursos que había usado antes de poder tomar el examen. This routine that I'm about to show you in the video was only done at home, not in an immersive environment, all on my own by myself, right? So I didn't have to go abroad and I still was able to pass the exam. Excited to show this routine to you now. So for the first 2 weeks of deciding to take the exam and sign up for it, I also decided to just test myself and get the book Preparación al Diploma de Español C1 and practice each of the main components of the test, just to kind of test if I understood the material, what kind of topics I would be tested on, see the general structure of the exam, and see any weak points that I immediately noticed pop out to me as I was taking the exam. Now, even though I did that on my high energy days for the first 2.5 weeks, my low energy days from the very beginning of wanting to take the exam and up through taking the exam in the first place, for 5 months, I was able to use Timely Learning, the sponsor of today's video. Timely Learning is a browser extension that swaps out a few words on the websites you already read with the foreign language equivalents. And the effect is that you start seeing new vocabulary and context throughout the day when browsing websites in your native language, without having to schedule extra study time. But Timely isn't only passive. They've also built interactive flashcards using spaced repetition to teach you the right words at the right moment. And their content covers around 10,000 curated translations from A1 to B2, all created with native speakers in several languages. And you can easily review words that you've seen while web browsing. It does feel structured, but it does also feel lightweight and something I can check in with for a few minutes every day without disrupting what I am reading completely. There's also progress tracking, which I have found very helpful, and it's very straightforward, showing you your vocabulary and how it grows over time. Having those metrics makes it easier to see if I'm actually moving in the right direction. Now, in terms of grammar, the creators of Timely Learning are working to make it so users can easily look up verb conjugations and other grammar rules in the future. There's also a mode for inflected words, which you can switch on. So essentially, as you're browsing and encounter a new word in your target language, you can click on it and then click on Show Sentence, where you can see the words that are translated in the context of the fully translated sentences. At the moment, the browser extension supports English, German, French, Italian, Spanish, European, Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, and Hindi, and they definitely have more languages on the way. Timely Learning is in the beta testing phase, so that means it is completely free to use, full access to everything as they refine their product based on user feedback. And if you want to join into the free beta testing phase, you can click the link either in the comments or in the description below. Okay, so that is what I did during the first 2 weeks of this process. The next 2 weeks after starting was I did find a teacher. That made all the difference in feeling ready to really go to the next level with C1. Again, I highly recommend Adriana on italki, who is absolutely amazing. Just make sure whoever you do pick is both a certified teacher and is also a certified examiner of the daily exam. They'll also really help you with any sort of writing and speaking output activities and give you instant feedback on that of where you need to improve. So whenever I was watching Netflix, I would just make sure everything was in Spanish. Whenever I was reading articles, I would read from the news websites, especially of El País and El Mundo, and I also recorded any new vocabulary that I did not know, absolutely every single word, because again, we are taking Spanish to a whole new level, and vocabulary is super important. I also made sure to include 30 minutes of flashcard and vocabulary notebook review about 5 times per week. So I did have my personal vocab notebook and any new words or expressions, along with any sort of words I didn't know from my personal reading and listening from consuming everything in Spanish. For month 4, from 1 lesson per week up until 2 lessons per week for 60 minutes each, both including a speaking and writing component, but I did not time myself because I wasn't putting pressure on myself too far in advance. I would also practice 2 times during
the month, the listening portion of the test, as well as the reading portion of the test. Again, 2 times, still consuming everything in Spanish, still maintaining my flashcard and vocabulary recording and review 5 times per week. And I also made it a point to assess improvements in weaknesses and strengths with my teacher at the end of the month. So, again, we are doing a lot and getting a lot of feedback from the teacher. That is why it is crucial to pick someone really, really good. All right. 3 months into the exam, a lot stayed the same, but there were a few main differences, including completing 1 mock exam for the month. Because again, we're in month 3, so we're preparing ourselves for that. And I did make sure to time myself this time. I also made sure to continue, 2 lessons per week with Adriana. And this time, the main difference was that I did time myself. I toned down the practice listening portion and the practice reading portion, just practicing them separately. Continued everything with Spanish input only, integrating corrections, especially that Adriana would give me, completing 3 mock exams for the month, and making sure to combine at least 1 to 2 sections together. So reading and then listening and or speaking and writing, just to make sure that I was building up my stamina for doing more than one section. I would reduce my lessons down to just 1 lesson with Adriana per week because, again, I was practicing a lot beforehand, doubling down on improving any sorts of weak points identified with the teacher. Those were mainly seen for me in reading and listening. And sometimes I did falter on being able to review all of the vocabulary that I had learned. So that is also why I reduced the lesson time with Adriana just to 1 lesson a week so that I could dedicate more time on improving weak points. I also really made sure to start speaking Spanish in person. I did live in a place that gratefully had some Spanish meetups. And again, continuing with my vocabulary and Spanish only input routine, I would start to consume everything in different types of Spanish, if you know what I mean. So maybe a listening section from Puerto Rico, and then something in writing that was produced in Spain, and then talking to one of my friends who was from Mexico and Peru. Like there were so many different accents pre-exam. I only did 2 lessons that month in total with Adriana, again, because speaking and writing, even though they were both timed, were my strongest suits. Then I really started to double down on my listening section and reading section. So with the Dele, I believe it's this book right here, I did a lot of practice exams with these. Now, I think I did skip out on maybe 1 or 2 weeks because this can get really tiring really fast. So I think the very last week of the last month, I really don't think I did much besides maybe like 1 listening section at that point.
Now, the week of the exam, because the preparation itself is just as important as how we are feeling, right? What our energy is. I can tend to be very low energy a lot of the times in my language learning, so I had to make sure to lay out the necessary steps in order to make myself feel as comfortable as possible. I made sure to clear my schedule for the whole week, made sure that I still had a really good diet, I was eating enough, I was also sleeping enough, drinking enough water. I also made sure to look up exactly where I needed to be on exam day, make sure I took the taxi instead of public transport because I was nervous about missing out. I made sure to print out everything I needed, including my confirmation that I was taking the exam, as well as make sure I had my ID card with me. I also made sure to heavily lean into the pre-exam nerves and during exam nerves that I definitely experienced. I know that it's not really something that will go away, especially when we are getting up to the actual process. And so I knew that instead of resisting, which would take even more energy away from me that I could be focusing or using to focus on the exam, right? I decided to just lean into what I was feeling and really just accept, this is a hard thing to do and you are showing up with your best effort and that is enough. It definitely helped me be less critical of myself and less anxious, let's say, than if I were just criticizing myself and trying to, in a sense, already predict my negative performance on an exam that I hadn't even taken yet. And this is why I practiced the exam so much, like I knew it like the back of my hand, because I knew that those nerves were going to be there. And it's kind of like muscle memory when playing an instrument again, right? Because even though we might have the nerves, our bodies know what to do. Our minds are prepped and they know what to expect in a sense, in a general structure. But I hope you got definitely a few more tips in order to get to your C1 Spanish journey as well. Let me know in the comments what you resonated with most. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video soon.